Yeah, different day, same vehicle. We're still working on the 51 Ford pickup, and we've got a bunch of stuff to do. A lot of odds and ends, and today we're gonna try to get through some of those, and if not, we'll make another video. But anyway, we've got a pretty busy lineup. Before we start with what we have to do, let me just show you what I've done and finished up. Like I said, there's a lot of small stuff to do. I've got the rear shocks mounted and my brace bar in place, and they look fine. We got the cross members for the fuel tank welded in, painted, and I've got the straps made. They're gonna wrap around the bottom, I believe, for now. And if I can get my buddy to do some welding for me to make a nice weld, I can weld, but I can't weld very good. I'm gonna put an L bracket on the fuel tank box and then mount it with mounting bolts up into the cross members, and then maybe use the straps to strap over top of the fuel cell. But for now, I'm gonna put these on the bottom, and not quite ready to get the fuel tank in there yet, but we're getting closer. We yet to have the axle mounted onto the mounting plate, because we still have to get that pinion angle correct. And we'll know that pinion angle when I get the motor set in the truck, and that's what I really want to get done. We've got to figure out if these are the correct locations of the motor mounts, because we've got to allow enough for the main core support and the radiator and the fan. So we're going to be talking, it's going to be critical to get that all tucked in there, and then have the engine placed where it needs to be. And then if those engine mounts, and if the engine goes back further, we're going to have to cut into the firewall for the transmission. It's not a real huge bell housing, but we still may have to cut into that firewall. We got to sand down the firewall. Yeah, that's ongoing. Bodywork, we've got, some headway. There's tons of bodywork to do on this thing. I had gotten the flap sander onto the body and the doors, and this door I'm setting aside for now. We put some patches on the bottom. We got the inner bottom sill cleaned up and patched, and then we've got that big crease in the door. That's passenger side door. The driver's side door, the skin isn't as bad, but on the sill of the inner skin, it's rotted out pretty bad. So I got the new panel that's going to go in place of the old rusty stuff. So I have that to do, and that's going to be tricky because I got to peel back the door skin, that overlapped lip around the edge, the bottom. We have to be careful with that. So that's going on. I don't know if I'm going to get everything into this video. That may be a separate video. As far as the hood goes, we've made a lot of progress on the hood. We got the flap sander and cleaned off the majority of the old paint. We're going to use now 120 grit on my buffer sander, and we're going to go across the whole thing and get it even smoother yet. On both sides at the front of the hood, this was cracked, and I don't understand why that would be a stress point, but I've got that welded, put a little bit of body filler on it. It's looking better. On the back edge, we're back towards the rear of the hood. This was rotted out, and this is where there's a cross member support. And so what I did was I removed that support, had to peel this back to get this bracket off, had to cut into a couple small welds there and a couple small welds on those two kind of like standoffs. And then we patched it on both sides. We put a patch on the skin there and down here. So that's looking pretty decent. I'm happy with that. And then we got it back together. Well, then I wire wheeled it, got everything clean. The bottom side of the hood is all, got all that undercoating removed. That was a mess. But then before we put this bracket back on, wire wheeled it, used OSPO acid neutralizer, and then we primed it, and then I used an acrylic enamel to seal it up. And so that should keep it kind of good for a while. When we put the finished paint on it, this is actually going to get a coat of epoxy to seal everything, and then a primer, high build primer. Everything gets sanded down, and then the hood is going to be black cherry color. So the box, everything on the cab, doors, hood will be black cherry color, and fenders and the box, I think the box, are going to be a midnight black. So anyway, all that's going to get painted. Underside, firewall is going to be black cherry. So I've got some pieces here that I've cleaned up and primed, and I've got to get the radiator, make sure that mates up correctly with the core support, the radiator support. The radiator is by Champion, and it was listed as a direct replacement for the stock, and those are all the stock hole locations. So I'm going to try that because I haven't verified that all holes lined up and everything is the right dimension. So I'll be doing that. And then here's our electric fan. That's going to be going on the inside of the radiator on the firewall side. And so that's the critical thing. We've got to make sure that the engine, the front end of the engine, is not going to be mashing into the radiator and into the fan. Oh, let's see. So we're going to get the engine up on the hoist, and set it down. First, I'm gonna do it without mating up the transmission so that I can at least get this front edge, the clearance on the front of the engine correct. And then we'll know the position of the engine mounts. So once we know the location of those engine mounts, we're going to weld those in, and then have the engine and the transmission mated, and then we'll know how far back into that firewall we're going to be pushing the engine transmission. So we'll figure out how to, we'll measure it that way. And then, so if those engine mounts are, set in place, I can set the engine down with transmission, or, see if it's going to make it back to that spot or not. So that's the plan for that. So things are coming together. It's a lot of stuff. Oh, yep. And there's my gritty, grimy shop clothes, because we've been doing a lot of dirty, crappy jobs, a lot of, painting and nothing, not really mechanical, but all this dirt is really bad news. And so I wear the oldest clothes I've got, and what can I say? I'm a grunge ball when I'm doing it. And, I got to get into the Chinese laundry pretty soon, because it's getting filthier as we stand here. So let's get started instead of standing here talking. Out of the way. Okay. All right, we have to unbolt this mount. Let's see. There we go. Well, actually, maybe I don't have to take this off. Let me try keeping these on for now. And slide the engine back there. Oh, I should have loosened these up earlier. Wrenches, wrenches, wrenches. bushings for the motor mounts off. Alright, let's see if we can slide this baby back there. So if it falls, it doesn't fall as far as it goes up. Okay. Yeah, I can lower it down. This engine hoist, or the engine stand, that part of the stand is hopefully not going to be in our way. All I want to do is get an idea of where the engine's going to sit, and outside. Darn it. This engine stand may be getting in our way. Should have taken the whole thing off. Move the frame up and back. But the motor wants to twist because of this chain. I'll have to bungee cord it or something. But at a glance, okay. All right, before we continue on with this, I'm going to let this go. And I'm going to move over and make sure that this radiator will match up with the core support. So let me see. I can just move you over here and get things readjusted. And it's been several months since I ordered this radiator, so if it doesn't match, I can't return it, and we'll just have to make it work. But I think it's going to be just fine. I'm going to have to find some bolts. When I removed the old radiator, the original one, I think I tossed those mounting bolts because everything was just so badly rusted it wasn't worth reusing them. Nice little radiator. It's gonna have that hump 51 Ford, that pickup hump that they have. And let's see, keep your fingers crossed. Like I said, this is the first time I've tried this. And yeah, it kind of looks promising. Let's see. Yeah, not bad. Might have to remount some of these holes, but I think that's gonna work. Let me bring it in here closer. So here are the mounting holes. And that one is, it's hard to see, but we're gonna have to go on the inside, keep the bolt towards the inside of the slot. The other side looks pretty decent. So I think we're gonna be just fine. And this is the correct side. Well, actually, I have to flip it. It's backwards, but it should be symmetrical because this is the side that's going to be going towards the firewall. Let me flip this around, and then I'm going to get a couple bolts and fasten this, and then we'll set it up over here. It's got to be mounted on these two mounts. These other two, let's see, what is, there's a bracket that goes down there for the front clip. I think, is that right? Anyway, I think the core support's going to go right here. So, all right, let me get some bolts. Let's lower it down a little bit. Lower the engine and tilt it back just a smidgen. Now, we are sitting on top of the, yeah, it's gonna tilt back. We're sitting on top of the rack and pinion, the steering, on the bottom pulley, the main crank pulley. That's not good, but this spacer's gonna be a little bit higher, I believe. As far as clearance goes here, we're really close. I can get that fan and we can check it. But the engine wants to tilt forward. Once the transmission's on and the weight in the back, it's going to want to tilt backwards. But we may have to put these motor mounts a little bit higher. We're real close. We're real close to being good. Now, I don't know, the oil pan is clearing by 1.5 inches on the front cross member, but that pulley on the rack is not good. So, I can't, yeah, I can. There, I can tilt the engine and get it off of that rack so there's some clearance. And let me get that fan and see how close we're going to be. I really would like to keep those motor mounts right where they're at. Let's not lose our hardware. All right, so if we're going to be a puller, we can mount this up higher. It's in the middle of the radiator, and the shaft is just below. Let me bring you over here to show you how close we are. Okay, I think the engine is kind of where it's got to be. It's sitting on top of the motor mount. As you can see, and I just have a temporary pad there. You know, it's a look back a little bit further than it's supposed to be. But it's in the ballpark. The engine is tilted forward more than it is normally going to be. It's going to be tilted back just a smidgen. And as far as how much tilt is going to be on this radiator, I don't know, but I'm going to make an assumption. We have clearance there, assuming that the radiator tilts back some. It is real close. So we have a 1/2 inch clearance of that pulley, and the back of the fan motor. If we tilt back, we're going to get a little bit more clearance, but not much. So we are real close there. I'd like to have just a little bit more for insurance. Now on the back of the engine, at the firewall, I think we're in pretty good shape. Valve covers are going to clear the firewall. The question is how much room we're going to have, I guess, vertical when the tranny is in. Yeah, we don't know that until we get the transmission on. But I think what I'm going to do, so we have 2 fingers worth here of clearance. I might bring this motor mount back like 1 finger width. That would give us enough insurance up here at the front that that we might need. So I don't know, it's gonna be close. Maybe the thing to do is to get an inner fender and hook it onto the core support to make sure that this core support doesn't have to go back or forward. It'd be nice if it had to go forward, then that would give us a little bit more clearance in the front here. So, and let me go down and get one of the inner fenders. So we have a general idea how this core support's going to stand. We've got just a bolt here. We've got a couple bolts lined up where they've been mounted into that core support, and that's the clearance that we have. It's 3 fingers wide. We have decent clearance. The back of the engine will tilt back. Let's see what it looks like over here. Lined up just about right on the motor mount. Now, after looking at the oil pan, let me try to duck down here. Show you how low the oil pan sits relative to the cross member on the Mustang 2 front end. That hangs down a bit. And that's the stock oil pan, which is a deep well. That's a little concerning. I think what I'd really like to do is to bring up these motor mounts. Right now it's flush with the frame. And what I think I'd like to do is bring it up enough that I can put a plate between the top of the frame and slide it in underneath the motor mount. Weld that. So then that would give us another, another 3/4 of an inch maybe? It's kind of hard to judge, depending on the thickness of that plate that we put in here. That would give it enough strength on the top side that we can weld all the way around, and then on the two sides and the inside of the motor mount. That would raise up the engine and bring that oil pan up a bit. I had not planned on swapping out that oil pan for a shallower well. I really don't want to do that, but it might be necessary. At the same time of raising this, I want to bring this mount back another, I don't know, at least 1 finger worth. But you can see on the firewall that we have a fair amount of clearance, especially on the driver's side. Passenger side, it's about the same. It's 2 fingers worth. Well, maybe there's 3 fingers on the driver's side, about 2 on the passenger side. We can afford to bring it back, and then when the transmission goes in, if we have to cut a scoop out of the firewall, so be it. We'll have to do it. I think that's the plan. The fan is gonna be centered on the radiator. It may not be centered with the water pump. And in fact, this water pump nut, I had to cut off the original mechanical fan because I just couldn't get it off. But we can zip that off and get another, I don't know, 3/8 or a 1/2 inch off of that if we really have to. Let me set this fan in there again. And if worse comes worse, if it doesn't work, if the fan goes in as a puller, pulling air through the radiator to the engine, we can always put it on the outside and make it a pusher, which it would push air. Yeah, this will clear. It's not ideal, but it would work. This is kind of a tall radiator, and this fan, I think that was a 15 inch. I'm not certain, but it's a tall radiator compared to the fan. So sorry for jumping around here, but we got 6 inches, 8 inches down there if we were to mount it up here, or even lower. But the issue is partly the clearance that we have in here for the front part of the clip. So, all right, I think I've got a plan. Let me recap again. I'm going to raise the motor mounts up enough that I can get maybe a 3/16 inch plate between the top of the frame and the bottom of the mount. So I'll sneak it in there, weld it, and then come back like 1 finger width, which is it's a little bit over 1/2 inch. So that's the plan, and keep my fingers crossed that we don't have to change the oil pan. to take the inner fender back where it's stored down the basement. Hope I don't need that. Let me get this radiator out of here without smashing the fins up. Now, later on, I'm going to paint that core support. I think I'm just going to paint it black. It's an acrylic enamel. And let's pull this engine back out. I think I had 3/16 inch plate left over. If not, I'll have to buy some more or go to we have a local metal supplier, and sometimes they have scraps and they charge like 50 cents a pound, which is it's a bargain. When you need some small pieces, they're easy to, they're cheap, easy to deal with. Come on down. Get my legs underneath this engine. Or any other part of my body. Just lower it enough, just so it can rest on the floor. Okay. I'll have to grind off those temporary welds, and then I'll find some 3/16 plate, stick it in there, and it should be enough length here on the side walls that will have enough support. So, all right, let me see what I can find. I found a piece of 1/8 steel, which Basically the frame of these cars or trucks are about a 1/8 inch. And I did find 3/16. I'm gonna go with a 3/16. I've gotta straighten out some of these edges, make them nice. But we've got enough material we can make 2 little plates. So I'll do those, and we'll take out these tack welds, and then we'll get it in there permanently. So my reference points had been these holes on both sides. So let me get a piece of tape so that I don't forget, and I'll mark where we're gonna slide these motor mounts back a smidgen. So it's gonna be there. And this guy. Be about the same. So that's going to be the new location. Okey-dokey. Let me get cutting, and we'll nip off those spot welds. So this is what I had in mind. We got these cut off, and so this is 3/16. What I had in mind was something like this. I don't know if I can do this with one hand. It's close. So that plate can bump up the motor mount, not very much, but every little bit helps. And then I'll weld it underneath here first, around the whole primer, and then this will go on to the frame, weld it all the way around, and then these side gusset supports, they get welded. So that's kind of what I had in mind. It may not bring the motor up as much as I'd like, because I do want to get that, like I said, it's a deep sump on the oil pan. If anybody has a shallow oil pan for an LQ9 or an LQ4, that would work. And I'm sure the other LS engines would also work on it. But if I buy a new one, it's going to be more nickels and dimes going out of my pocket, and I try to eliminate that as much as I can. Anyway, we'll get this welded up, and tonight I'm going to paint these parts, the core support, and so it's dry overnight. And What a nice radiator. So I think that's going to be it for tonight. I'll do some of this tomorrow and get this welding wrapped up here and do another test fit just to make sure it's going to lay out right. And then we'll get the motor and the tranny together. Tranny's hiding over there in the corner. So, all right, that's it for tonight, and we'll get back to it tomorrow. It is the next day, and we are ready to start welding in the motor mounts. I've got them prepped, and I've got these plates made, and they're gonna get welded onto the mounts first, and then we'll mount that small assembly onto the frame rails. So they're prepped, ready to go. So let's just get this finished up, and then we'll set the engine back in and make sure that it clears the firewall, and then that we have enough clearance on the core support and radiator and fan. Last night I got the core support painted, and it is dry. It's dry enough that we can handle it and temporarily mount the radiator on it. So let me get this welding going. Not starting out very well. The wire is getting jammed up in the tip, and I cleared that, and there's something going on in the machine, so I gotta fix that. Make sure the wire can feed out. I got that fixed. It was kind of strange. The wire hung up inside the hose about halfway, and it was stuck. So that was kind of a first. That's never happened before. All right, let's continue. Well, they're welded in place. I've got to finish welding on the sides at these gussets. But yeah, what we're going to do is take off this bracket for the engine stand, and I'm going to put on this flywheel, this flex plate, and I had repaired it here. I think this is going to be a okay repair. But we'll try to do another test fit. And then test fit, I'll put the radiator core support back on and everything that's got to be there in order to have this engine setting in there. Then at the same time, we can determine how steering linkage is going to line up. It's sort of pointing right to that mount right now, but we're going to need a knuckle here to bring it up and over, and also clear headers and so forth. Also, we have a master brake cylinder and booster that are going to be going somewhere in there. So that's why we're doing this test fit. Bring it down nice and gently, ever so nicely. Come on, real nice and easy. Okay, we are looking pretty decent. We're lined up top to bottom. I'm gonna run this one motor mount. Keep my fingers out of harm's way. Okay, that one's gonna come down here, nice and easy. Oh yeah. Let's get them out here. So far we're not slamming into the firewall, which is a good thing. Let's see how we line up on this side. All right, we are going to be clear, I believe. Where's my other motor mount bushing? Okay, let's bring it down. Do that from this side. All right. Maybe I can get that pushing in there. Oh, yeah, just perfect. Get that on there. If I can find it, and it will probably never be seen again. All right, where'd you go? Where did you go? Okay. We're sort of lined up. Now, the motor gun is still tilting forward towards the front, but we'll see how it looks after you get it all the way down. She wants to tilt forward. That's fine. All right. We got the pulley off of the rack and pinion. Let me bring in here and get a closer look. So that's pretty close to what we had yesterday. I did move the mount back by 1 finger widths on each side relative to the hole that was in, and those are calibrated exact length holes used for reference points. So I did that on both sides. When the engine tilts back, we're going to be pretty close and pretty decent with the firewall. Now let me get the core support with the radiator on here, and we'll see what it looks like. Well, I think we're in good shape. We have plenty of clearance. I set the fan up and remeasured. And we have plenty of clearance room here. We don't necessarily have to have the fan motor in line with the water pump. So the fan motor is going to be just a little bit on the higher side, but it's going to be the center of the radiator. And we got the headers put on there temporarily. Clearance is just fine. I did manage to tilt back the motor just a wee bit, and we still have plenty of room here for valve covers. Let me go to the other side. This header looks good. No problems there with the frame. I think with the steering knuckle, we'll have to come up just on the outside of the header, not a problem. So there'll be a knuckle here, a shaft, another knuckle midway, and then a shaft up to the steering